Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today we're going to be talking about depotting eyeshadow. So I feel like depotting palettes has become more of a thing in maybe the past year or so. And I know that I see a lot in my feed from Faces by Gina. She depots like every single eyeshadow palette that comes in her possession. It's really cool. I'll insert like a picture of her page right here, and I'll link her page down below in the description box if you guys want to go check her out. But basically, if you're not familiar with depotting, it's basically the act of taking like shadows out of a palette like this and either, oops, there goes the brush, physically removing these pans, or like scraping out the eyeshadow and repressing it into other magnetic pans and storing them in magnetic palettes versus like these kind of static palettes. And I have done a little bit of depotting here and there. It's kind of what started my single shadow collection. I depotted a couple of ColourPops that I depotted a couple of ColourPop palettes that I had in my collection, and that was really fun, but I haven't really done any depotting since, and that was probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's been a little while, and since I've been on my no buy, I've been really diving into my eyeshadow palette collection, and I've kind of been looking at a couple of palettes like, should I depot you? I'm not getting a whole lot of use out of you. And that's what today's video is going to be all about. I kind of just wanted to share which palettes I'm thinking of depotting with you guys and kind of get your thoughts on them. I've had a lot of luck depotting palettes in the past as far as usage wise. So I thought it would be fun to chat about it in today's video. So I'm not going to blabber on any further. Let's hop into it. Alright, you guys, so the first palette I'm kind of considering depotting is the Kaleido Cosmetics, I believe this is the Golden Hour palette. I wanted to say the Sunset palette, but it's Golden Hour. This was actually gifted to me by the brand several years ago, and it's a pretty palette, but it's an all shimmer palette, and I don't reach for all shimmer palettes a whole lot, you guys. It's not a bad companion palette to like an all matte palette or just another palette, but the shades in here aren't quite unique enough for me to be like, hey, I want to grab you and I want all those shades. So I'm kind of considering depotting this one. The fact that these pans are square is going to bother me a little bit when I'm depotting them, but I do have some square pans like from Lethal Cosmetics and Menagerie, but I don't think it'll be too bad. It looks like it would be really, really easy to kind of pop these shadows out of this packaging. It has like a little slit right here. Usually with palettes like this, you just kind of wedge something under here like a little knife, pop that up, and then you pop the shadows out of this cardboard component right here, and it's a pretty simple process. I'm looking at these shadows and I'm honestly kind of thinking that these are colors that I don't necessarily have a lot of in my single shadow collection. I've been really, really into creating custom palettes lately. I actually have a custom palette on my eyes right now. I believe I'm uploading a video on fall custom singles palettes before I upload this one. This is the one I have on my eyes right now. And I've just been having so much fun with that. So if I can like give myself even more options without necessarily breaking my no buy and buying more single shadows, I would love to do that with some of these palettes. So long story short, that's why I wanted to pot this one. I think I would get a lot more usage out of it that way. Okay, this next one I've been saying that I'm going to pot for years and years and years, and it's the ColourPop Misunderstood palette. I'm a little bit hesitant to depot this one because I don't want to destroy this packaging. I know that with ColourPop packaging, their palettes are like magnetic, so there's just like a big magnet under this piece right here. So if I get a strong enough magnet, I should be able to just pop these shadows right out. And I think that's probably the option I'm going to go with for these, because I can stick like other ColourPop shadows in here if I really wanted to. I just find that this palette is not quite cohesive enough for me. I really like to have some more mid-tones options in my palettes. I don't know, something about this one, and I don't end up reaching for it a whole lot. When I do reach for it, I like the looks that I create, but I just feel like I would get a lot more use out of it if these shadows were singles. Next up, we have Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture. You guys, I love the color story of Subculture. It is absolutely gorgeous. But I feel like when I want to use the shades that are in here, I'm like, I kind of want to choose like one of you at a time. I don't necessarily want the whole shebang because the colors tend to be a little bit temperamental to work with. So I'm wondering if I pop the shadows out of here, if I'll like that more, because I do love these tones. I'm really, really into grungy eyes right now. I mean, look at my eyes right now. So I think this would be a really fun addition to my singles collection, but also like, part of me feels like Subculture was like a moment in makeup history and I don't want to separate it. I don't know. I know a lot of people have depotted all of their ABH shadows and put them in like a single magnetic palette, and I kind of am a little bit tempted to do that. I think that would be fun, but I don't know. It's just something that I'm considering right now. Next up, we have a palette from Bad Habit, and it's the Cult Mania palette. Bad Habit is no longer a brand, so I really don't feel too like guilty about dismantling this palette. The main reason I want to dismantle this one is because there are 3 really special shadows right here, and this red is pretty good too, and so is this bronzy shade that I really love. They're really textured, they're really glittery, they're really foiled, but the rest of this palette I don't really get a whole lot of use out of, and I feel like maybe I would reach for these shadows a little bit more if they weren't attached to the rest of this palette. The color story just really isn't super functional for me. Again, it's very deep, and I definitely need those midtones to help things blend out on my eyes and nicely into my skin tone, so I'm thinking this one's gonna get depotted sooner than later. Okay, you guys, this next palette I want to depot because it's a pretty controversial palette, and it's the Alma palette from Amy Hearts Beauty. This palette was created in collaboration with Amy Loves Makeup, and that collaboration didn't go well, to say the least. I don't really want to get into it in this video, but I was so excited to support Amy, but when I look at this palette now, I just kind of remember all of the bad blood that happened between the brand, between Amy, between the customers. I don't really feel comfortable promoting this palette anymore, but I do still love it. But there are some shadows in here that I do feel like are pretty darn decent. Not every single shadow, because there were major inconsistencies from the brand, but there were a couple that I would like to keep, so I'm kind of thinking about just kind of popping those ones out. I'm not sure if this is magnetic packaging or not. If it is, I would definitely just like suck those out with a magnet and keep this packaging, because Amy did design it, and I think she did a really nice job with it, but I don't know. Next up, we have another palette from a brand that is no more, and that is the Blush Tribe Blossom palette. This was my first ever indie makeup palette, indie makeup eyeshadow, so it holds a really special place in my heart, but I don't really reach into this palette a whole lot anymore. I used to when it was like my only rainbow palette, but I'm more going towards my singles these days, or just like more unique rainbow tones. I do see this having a purpose in my singles collection because I don't have a lot of like true primary color singles like are in here. So I would definitely be interested in depotting this one. Again, the packaging on this one seems like it would be super easy to just like chop this part off and pop the shadows out and be done with it. But I also kind of want to hold on to the packaging because again, it was my first piece of indie makeup. Okay, the next 2 palettes are from a brand that I used to love, you guys, and their shadow formula is still fantastic, but they're just not cruelty free, so I don't really feel super comfortable promoting them on my channel. It just doesn't align with my values. And those are 2 palettes from Lorac. I just totally whacked myself in the face with those. But I think these are beautiful palettes. The first palette I have is the Shine Bright palette. This was their Christmas palette 3 years ago. It's been a little while. And I just love this color story. I think it's a beautiful mix of jewel tones and neutrals, and it was a really fun one to work with. When I got this palette, I did like a whole review that's probably really cringy because it's pretty old. But I really do enjoy these shadows, but every time I go to reach for this, I'm like, well, if I'm gonna create like a look, I don't really want to create a look that I'm gonna post, so I'm thinking maybe moving this into my singles collection will kind of clear my conscience a little bit, because I did already purchase this. I bought this before I went fully cruelty free. So I still want to get my usage out of this because these are beautiful shadows, but I don't really want to support Lorac anymore. Same story with this Lorac Pro palette. It is full of so many beautiful neutrals that would serve such a purpose in my singles collection. I feel like I have a lot of holes as far as neutrals are concerned in my singles collection. I just get excited and I want like colorful shades when I buy singles, so I think this would actually be really valuable to add to my singles, and I'm not using it in a palette, so I think this one's definitely gonna get depotted. I just need some more empty magnetic palettes. And then finally, the last palette that I wanted to throw in here is the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. This one, again, I kind of hesitate to depot because it does have that sentimental meaning for me. I was so excited to get this palette. It was one of my favorite palettes for like a good solid 6 months, but I'm just not using it anymore, you guys. I think these shadows would really be more helpful to me and get more usage if I turn them into singles. I just hesitate to do that because this is going to take up like an entire singles palette. I think I need to buy like the giant Adept palette before I start depotting more things. But once again, this has a lot of really key neutrals that I feel like I'm like scraping the bottom of the barrel for in my singles collection. Like I've got like one of them, so if I want to create custom palettes or multiple custom palettes in one sitting, it's kind of hard to do that, and I think this would provide a lot of those for me and fill a lot of those holes. So this is just like a short little chatty video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below letting me know if you have ever depotted one of your eyeshadow palettes, if you're like, no, I want to keep everything in a palette forever. I feel like I really used to be like team keep things in a palette forever, but I've gotten really into my single shadows lately, and now I'm kind of moving over to team depot everything. So that's gonna wrap it up for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.